Yo, let me tell you about the lore.
Just changing the tone a little bit.
Yeah,
here
no
is so it was actually Josh who took this photo, and
where was this?
At Canada Cup.
Oh, okay.
So. I mean, do you remember this, by the way? Like, do you remember what we were talking about or what we were doing?
I have no recollection at all. So, I mean, obviously that's you, Damdai, and myself, but I mean...
Yeah. It was funny. So, so Josh is trying to take pictures of us, and then I look over, because he's, like, standing in front of me, like, basically next to me and Damien, and then I was like, hey, guys, we got to act natural, and then he just started like pointing at me. Damien's laughing. I just made a dumb face on purpose. So this is the photo that got snapped.
Oh my god! So we're actually kind of goofing around in it, but that's great actually, because it looks like it was a candid moment captured, but
it's not. Like, I know from my face, like that's my dumb face that I do on purpose, and you're just like, all right, Damien, I guess I'm pretending to point and talk about something.
That's awesome. Oh, that's hilarious. That's a great photo, dude. Oh man, you gotta send that photo to me so I can.
Yeah, I'll send it over to you.
Okay.
Another fun fact about this tournament, at the top 8, I had to fight Damdai, and I felt pretty good about the match, but just before, I'm like, I need to get a Dr. Pepper. Like, it's a thing. I gotta drink a Dr. Pepper every tournament. And at the vending machine, or not, at the convenience store at the venue, they just ran out of it. So I had to get the Diet Dr. Pepper. That's a hyper fighting Bipson color, not the, the regular Dr. Pepper is CE Dictator. I was playing the toned down version. So when I lost to Damien, I'm like, I lost because of the Diet Dr. Pepper, man. But
that's hilarious. That was at the crazy cornered Canada Cup in the middle of the giant venue, wasn't it? Or
I forget which year this was.
Okay.
Because we also did commentary together here as well.
Okay, so that was a different year. Yeah, that was a different year. Okay.
And yeah, I remember at the end of one of the tournaments, you're like, "Hey, Rizwan." I'm like, "Yeah, what's up?" He goes, and you're like, "So, what's your name? So I don't have to keep calling you by your gamer tag." I said, "It's Rizwan." Like, what? Yeah, it's my name. It's just spelled different.
Yep.
So,
I was always like,
funny.
Well, that's convenient.
Do you find it weird when people call you James Chen all the time?
Dude, nobody calls me by my handle. Like, nobody. Like, my handle has more syllables than my actual name. So people have called me James Chen my whole entire life, and so I'm just kind of like, okay, fine. No one calls me Jay Chenzor. In fact, a lot of people thought it was JC Hensor. So it's all good.
It's funny. All right, so we're about two hours plus in. Did you want to take a quick break? I still have quite a bit of material. I'm so sorry in advance, but I got a bit left. How are you feeling?
I'm so used to sitting down and doing commentary for like 5 hours. I'm good.
Yeah.
Let's just, I mean, if you're okay, we can keep going. Yeah. We don't have to stop.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm good. All right.
Okay.
So I do have kind of like a bit of a lightning round that I'm going to do. It's the first time doing something like this.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to name an FGC terminology. And what I want you to tell me is like which decade or which year it's from, who coined the term, and if there's any relevant lore you want to share.
Oh man, you're gonna get me angry because I think I know what one of them is, but anyway.
I don't know. We'll see. So,
okay.
Oh wait. Oh yeah. All right. Yeah. I know what you're talking about. I'll save that one for later. Then I know what you're talking about. And then just so you remember what it was, those 3 things. Oh crap, it was the first one on my list. I'm gonna skip that one.
No worries. Yeah.
I'll skip that one.
Okay,
All right,
okay.
Safe jump.
Safe jump. That one, I don't know who termed it, and it came fairly late. Like I remember, like, because I was doing it in like alpha. By the time it was around alpha 3, I could do it, and I never understood why it worked, because Honda in alpha 3, if you hit with Crouching Fierce on a Shoto and then you jumped at him and hit jumping heavy kick, if they did an uppercut, they would block it, And if they uppercut, I would land and block their uppercut. And I didn't understand it. So even around that time, I hadn't heard the term safe jump or exactly what it was. In fact, I think it was Damdai, not Damdai, it was Daigo who was the first time I had seen someone use it and somebody talk about it. So to be honest with you, I don't remember when it came. I didn't learn about it until late, and I still don't use safe jumps because I suck. But for me, it was a pretty late term that came about.
I mean, it's just crazy because a lot of the terms I'm going to say are things that are universal that like everyone says now, but to be able to point at an origin would be funny. I heard a lot of these terms, like Jason Cole was the one who like discovered them, but let's keep it going. Okay. How about cross up?
Cross up, I don't know who invented it, but that was since the beginning. Since the very, very beginning, I maybe one of the first times I heard of it was I heard of it as a cross up kick. I know that there was other weird terms like something like a wrong way kick or something like that, but cross up was very early. And in fact, I believe people were even using the term cross up even in Street Fighter II World Warrior. Again, I don't know who coined it, but it was definitely a term used very, very early on.
All right, we're gonna go a little more modern now. Option select.
Option select. So option select. For me, my knowledge came from Virtua Fighter. Option select was a first term used in the Virtua Fighter scene, particularly for Akira in that game, because Akira in that game was a little busted in that his counter was like guard, neutral, down, and punch. Guard, neutral, down, and punch. Right? Or something like that. The input was something to that nature. But if you didn't reversal anything, you would down and punch. So there was a lot of situations where you would get into that if you thought they were going to low kick you, you could input the command, and if they kicked, you parried it. And if they didn't, you would punch them. And that, I was told, was called an option select. I had never heard of the term, but that's where I first heard it. And I believe it might even be LA Akira Gerald who first told me about that term, because he's a big Virtua Fighter head. It was somebody, but for what I know, it comes from there. I've heard that it might have also come from Tekken, but it definitely came from the 3D world first.
Interesting.
Before before it came to the 2D world. And in 2D, it showed up in full force in Third Strike. Street Fighter 3. Street Fighter 3 was where the term option select really started to take hold, because parry attack or parry throw was such a valuable option select, right? Or like when you jump, you did parry jump kick. And so if they tried to anti-air, you'd parry it and then jump kick. If they didn't, you jump kick. And so people started calling it an option select in Street Fighter 3. That's my first recollection of it showing up in the 2D world.
For me, I remember option select from Super Turbo, and I like the story because when we were discovering it, or like finding out the term for it, I was talking to NoHoHo, and he said, oh, like in Japan, I guess like the term that we're going to use is minimum logic. So, for example, if you throw a fireball at Honda with Ken and he does a butt slam through it, you would have to negative edge your next fireball. If you do a positive edge fireball, like a fierce fireball to do the block string, if he does a butt slam, your stand fierce will beat it if he was in the corner, or if you're in the mid screen, your stand fierce whiffs and you would get you. Right. That was like a minimum logic, or the safe jump, option select, dragon punch. But when it first got popularized was when Daigo was safe jumping against Rufus and doing the EX dragon punch in Street Fighter 4. And that's when I really kept hearing the term, option select. But at that point, I already understood the logic from Super Turbo. Right, but that's where I first heard that term.
Yeah, it definitely, Street Fighter 4 was a nice era because that's where it solidified a lot of terms,
Yeah.
So,
how about broken?
Broken? Ooh.
That character's broken.
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. Because before, I remember early days, we didn't use the word broken, we used the word cheap. Like,
Okay,
cheap,
yeah.
cheap was definitely the word of the word of the year. You know, that's cheap. Oh my god, moves cheap. Oh, like it's so cheap. Why are you playing so cheap? Tick throws are cheap. It was always cheap. It was always cheap. I don't know why the word cheap became that. Broken. I don't remember where that came from. It just kind of slipped in there eventually. And yeah, eventually everyone would be like, yo, this move is broken. And that's fascinating. That one kind of slipped in so subtly that I'm not even sure when it started because it's so ingrained in my head. I feel like I remember hearing it early, but yeah, I can't remember if I actually did hear it early now.
Yes, it's pretty funny though, that term. But even cheap, I always think that like, and I'm definitely gonna be wrong on this, but the Japanese players saw it as like cheese or something. Oh, that's cheesy.
Right,
you know, when
yeah.
you chip someone out in Alpha 2 and you get the little cheese icon. Like, I wonder if that's all connected, like cheap and oh, that's cheesy. You know, sometimes people are, oh, that's cheese.
Yeah.
So kind of similar thing.
Could be.
How about spam, which you kind of see on YouTube videos now, where like people that don't go to tournaments, oh, you just spammed fireballs. We're like, spam. Where'd that come from?
It definitely was pretty early on, I think, that people were saying that, because I definitely remember hearing people just, you know, oh, you're just spamming sonic booms all day. So I swear I remember hearing it sometime during the Street Fighter 2 era. But I mean, even back then when we used it, it was really mostly about fireballs. It was really about projectiles. I think MVC2 definitely is where it became popularized because, like I said, it was definitely a projectile thing. At first, it was more about projectiles, and then in MVC2, what did you do? It's like you jump in the air and finger lasers, you know, like proton shots, proton shots, proton shots. And so, like, in MVC2, people started really digging into that term. Oh, just spam projectiles, spam lasers, you know, spam rocks, and, you know, things like that. And MVC2 definitely popularized spam, at least from my experience. That I'm pretty sure that's where it got popular, but we used it before, like Alpha 2 custom combos, you know, like that was just spamming fireballs and stuff like that. So I know we used it early on, but it wasn't as prolific until MVC2.
How about Negative Edge?
That's a weird one. I had discovered Negative Edge a long time ago by myself, just like on the Super Nintendo version, I think it was. And I had never heard it called Negative Edge until it might have been a magazine or something like that, wrote it that way. It might even have been the magazine, that Game Pro magazine with the Tomo interview. That might have been one of the first places that I heard the term. But I remember hearing it and I was like, I hate this term. But, you know, it's you just sometimes you can't control it, right? So, like, the terms become the terms. Like, I've always hated the word buffering, you know, like, oh, buffer the standing strong into this. Me and my brother always called it terminating moves. Like, you can terminate this move into something else. And I always way preferred that. Even nowadays, I realize how bad that sounds. But, you know, I hated the term buffering, but, you know, now it's just buffering. But
I'll be cool. Snake Eyes, he terminated the stand shard to green hand.
Yeah, right.
You know,
see?
FADC. Yeah, that'd be sick.
Yeah, sounds better than buffering, at least. Let's put it that way.
Is weak.
So,
that's weak sauce. What about how about invincibility, priority? Those kind of fall under the same boat, like invincibility frames or priority. Priority was a term that everybody used, and to this day still has no official real meaning outside of those view-specific games like Third Strike, where they have the priority system where mediums beat lights and heavies beat mediums, like in 5 and stuff like that. There's priority system. Back in the days, we didn't know about hurt boxes and hit boxes, right? So when a move was hard to hit, we just said it had high priority. Yes, me too. Right? Yeah. So Chun back heavy punch in Third Strike had high priority. Yeah. We like, for example, you know, Ryu crouching strong in hyper fighting has high priority. Guile's crouching medium kick has low priority because everything can hit it, you know, and stuff like that. We just generically called it that. Nowadays, now that we know fighting games, I can logically deduce it as
hey, priority means your difference between hurtbox and hitbox ratio. You know,
it's
if you
so
have a
funny, dude.
Yeah, if you have a bigger hitbox than a hurtbox, you have a high priority. If it's a big hurtbox and a small hitbox, you have low priority. I can kind of explain it like that, but back then, it's like, I mean, there's another old school player named Derek Daniels, Omni. You probably know him. I don't know if you know about him. But he's super old school player from the Midwest, now lives in Southern California. But like he always tells the story of Vi one time teaching him some Alpha 2 stuff, that if you threw a fireball and the enemy jumped at you, Derek was using standing heavy punch to anti-air them. And Vi was like, you stand strong instead. And Derek was like, why? And Vi said, hits deeper, and just walks away. And like, what the hell does that even mean? Hits deeper, you know? Like me and Derek make fun.
Different, bro.
Yeah, me and Derek make fun of that all the time. But that's how we describe things. Oh, use this move. It has good priority.
Yeah, yo, let me tell you. So when I was in Chinatown Fair, and you know, again after sets, talked to Noho. Yo, why did that thing beat my thing? It has better priority, right? He'd be like, yeah. He'd be like. And then Noho would say, like, yeah, it's because, you know, like the hitbox is big and, you know, your hurt box is whatever. Mm-hmm. And I'd be like, yeah, but it's because of the priority, right? And he would just repeat what he said. And I'm over here like, yeah, I get it, but I really don't.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, priority is the most, like, doesn't mean anything, makes sense, but everybody said it. Everybody. That has been something that has existed forever. So that's existed since Street Fighter 2 World Warrior 4.
Dude,
sure.
That's so funny, dude. I used to say priority for the longest until I started understanding the concept of hitbox, hurtbox. Because I just thought, oh yeah, whatever the size of the character is their hitbox, their hurtbox, but the move has priority. Like, it's different.
Because, like, that was the thing. It's like, you know, old school fighting games, it was about, like, oh, Zangief standing medium kick beats Shoto crouching medium kick, but then their crouching strong beats Zangief's standing medium kick, but then, you know, Zangief's crouching heavy kick beats their crouching strong. And so it was like, it's because of the priority.
yeah, that's the answer. That's a simple answer.
That's what we said. Oh yeah, it's because of the priority. That's how it worked. We didn't know what the hell that meant, but it made sense and it sounded good. So.
Oh my god, that's funny. How about Redizzy?
Redizzy was since we found the first Redizzy, you know, oh yeah, that was a Redizzy. Oh, he Redizzied him. You know, that just came out right away. And so the first Redizzies were all, I mean, there were some Redizzies that were really stupid. I got dizzied as Dalsum versus a Shoto one time. And don't forget, in World Warrior, Shoto uppercuts don't knock down.
Yeah.
Right? And Dalsum was one of the only characters that a Shoto could do an uppercut and hit twice because Dalsum was just really wide. I was stunned. My opponent was this little kid, and he just walked up to me and did a fierce uppercut that hit me twice, and he re-dizzied me. And I got so mad, like I actually physically tried to attack the kid because he was like cracking up, and I was like, "You stupid kid." But I mean, like, there were crazy Redizzy combos in that game, but of course the most famous one, the first one that got really popular, was Guile corner fierce Sonic Boom back fist, as well as Guile walk up to Zangief and go jab 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 jab.
Yeah, I did a bunch of those the other day. I was just like, since we're gonna do a World Warrior tournament, I'm like, you know what? Let's just play some World Warrior. This game is kind of good, but it's kind of dumb. But it was definitely ahead of its time. How about Infinites?
Infinites, that came pretty, I mean, as soon as people found an infinite combo, then it just took too long to say, and eventually it just got shortened to, oh yeah, we're landing infinites. Oh, you know, what can you do is infinite? You know, and stuff like that. So I'm trying to remember maybe what was the first infinite combo that we had ever seen. I'm trying to think, like, what was the first glitchy, like, infinite combo in a Street Fighter game, at least. I'm not sure, to be honest with you, because Redizzies were Redizzies, not infinites, you know what I mean? But, you know, obviously, Children of the Atom had a crap ton of infinites, but we didn't know how to do them at first. It was really Marvel superheroes for me that infinites really became a thing, because there were a pretty decent amount of infinites in that game. And, you know, as we all started getting better at these Marvel games, we started really taking advantage of the system. And so we learned what these infinites were. So that was one of the first games where infinites started becoming kind of more popular. Then X-Men versus Street Fighter came out and every character had an infinite.
Yeah, we know about that.
Yeah.
It's funny because it's like these all sound like super technical terms. Like if you talk to the average person that's not into fighting games, and oh yeah, you know, they did the safe jump and then, you know, hit confirmed into the infinite, and it's just like, whoa, like this is deep, this is chess.
Right, yeah.
What about this is a funky one. I'm curious if you know this meaty combo.
Meaty
hit.
combo,
like the James Chen special, the meaty low strong.
This one I don't know. The first time I heard this term was on AGSF2, was on Alt Games SF2, so it was pretty early on. I mean, I started Alt Games SF2 around Super Turbo Alpha 1 time, so that's when I first heard it. But people have been using it already, and I still hate this term because I still think it doesn't mean anything, and it just sounds really kind of stupid. And it's really, the term is really kind of taken a life of its own because it means like 3 different things now, which is another problem of it that I won't get into. But it definitely was a term that I saw around that time. But when people were using it in the news group, it wasn't like somebody was like, what the hell's meaty? It was clear that it was a term that everybody kind of knew already. We never used it. Like, we never described it that way. It was just every move had... Yeah, deep was another one. It was just that every move had like 9 active frames. So it was just so commonplace that you saw it all the time that there was really no reason to have an own term to describe it. And even then, like, people would do meaty combos that let you combo ways that you couldn't before, and you knew why it worked, but you didn't know why it worked. So there was no real term for it. You know, it was really weird. And there's still one meaty combo that I swear to God doesn't make any sense to me. That it was the Shoto. If you walked up in World Warrior and you did a meaty axe kick, so that the first hit on a very late active frame, you could do a meaty axe kick 2 hit into sweep.
Yeah.
But
combo.
If you just walk up and just do standing heavy kick and then sweep, you can't combo it, even though the second hit hits on its first frame every single time. And I still don't physically get that.
Yeah. Oh, actually. Yeah, it is kind of weird.
Right? I mean, like,
because you can't just do raw walk up. Yeah, I never thought about that.
Right? Exactly.
So like,
like, why does that work? Like, you don't add the hit stuns together, but what? Wait, what?
You know what it might be? It might be from the way that it hit, the reel back animation from the character, because sometimes like certain hits will trigger, you know, a hurt box to move. I don't know if that's
I don't know. And like I said, like, it's funny because that one is still one of the ones that confuses me the most.
Damn, I never thought about that. That's so weird. I got a couple more terms here. Okay. Fuzzy?
Fuzzy comes from 3D games as well. Fuzzy definitely comes from 3D games, and that term is another term that has been completely destroyed of what it's supposed to mean. I hate the fuzzy jump thing now because that should have never been fuzzy in the first place. But fuzzy was a term in 3D because 3D games in general have longer startup frames, right? So, for example, Tekken would have a move, I do this button and I have 2 follow-ups, one's a low, one's a mid. However, the mid one is a little bit slower. Oh, the low is slower than the mid. So if there's a timing that you can choose, that you can go from standing block to low block, that you'll block either one of them no matter what, if you use this consistent timing. Yes. Or if there's this mix up, you can kind of do a stand, crouch, stand, crouch, stand, crouch, and you just based off of the speed of the moves, you know, you can block either one of them. That's what fuzzy guard was. You know, because you're not specifically picking a guard, you're kind of fuzzily choosing which one to go with.
Both, kind of, yeah.
And that's what fuzzy was supposed to be. I don't know how someone decided to apply it to that weird thing where, like in Street Fighter 4 and Street Fighter 5, where you jump attack someone and then jump back light, and if they start crouch blocking, they're not quite crouching, but they count as a crouching state, but they're tall enough to be hit by the button, so it hits them. I don't know how it got applied to that, and I'm always mad that it did, because those two terms have nothing to do with each other. But now everyone calls it a fuzzy jump or whatever, and it's like,
fuzzy guard.
Yeah, and I'm like, what the? No, that's not what it means. And yeah, that one. But unlike another one that I think you're saving for later, that one doesn't get me as mad as that one. So
yeah, we'll get to that. All right. How about this one? The Holy Trinity of JC.
Whoa, I don't even know what that is.
Alright, that means because I made it up. So it's I'm surprised it never got pointed out, but it's James Chen, John Choi, Jason Cole.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay.
No one's ever brought that up?
Well, I've brought it up before because there's actually more than that too. I mean, technically, obviously I had mentioned, obviously he's we don't really talk about him anymore because we found out, but Mr. Wizard is Joey Cuellar. He was another one. Yeah. He was another JC. So I had noticed that there was a bunch of JCs in the scene. Yeah. And I know there's more that I'm not even thinking of right now. So, but I will say, to have me included in John Choi and Jason Cole as a holy trinity, I don't feel like I'm worthy.
Dude, you're in there. You're a part of. That's it. You guys are the Trinity. Period. I don't want to hear it, James.
I don't look. I am not a word. Like, those guys won Evo and Super Turbo. Okay, like I haven't won, jack shit in Super Turbo at Evo. So I'm not. I don't count myself in there.
They couldn't do it without you. You guys are a team. All right. All right. Let's move on to the term that we're both thinking. So tell me about that.
You're talking about Trip Guard, right?
Of course I am.
Trip Guard, 100% made up by me and my brother. That is a term that we used a long time ago to describe the ability to block something while landing. And so in Street Fighter 2, you didn't have Trip Guard. We would always say, yeah, this happens because there's no Trip Guard. And in fact, if you go to AGSF2 and do a search for the term Trip Guard on all of the archives out there, the first usage of that term is by me in AGSF2. And it's, like I said, having the ability to Trip Guard means you can land and block a sweep. Unfortunately, it has been turned into the term of anti-airing people with a sweep. So
yeah, it's the complete opposite. Yeah.
If you hit someone when they land and they can't block, people say, I Trip Guarded him. And I'm like, no, that's not what it means. And people still, Trip Guard anti-air. That's like the most famous one, the Trip Guard anti-air. I'm like, what part of what's happening is guard applying to here?
It's the lack of Trip Guard, guys.
Yes, exactly. So I get so mad about that. And everybody's like, too late, James, the term has been co-opted. And like fuzzy guard, like all these other terms, I understand that happened, but that doesn't mean I can't get mad about it.
So funny.
I will still get mad about it and yell about Trip Guard to this day, because Trip Guard is the ability to block. And so in Super Turbo, you do not have Trip Guard. And I will yell about that. I will be the old man yelling at clouds about that until the end of time. And so I will try to correct.
It was funny because even earlier we were commentating Super Turbo, and someone got an anti-air sweep, and I think Kudo said Trip Guard. I was like, you mean the lack of? He goes, shout out to James Chen. Anytime someone does a sweep, we just say that. We're like, oh, nice Trip Guard. And then someone will go, you mean the lack of Trip Guard thereof? And then shout out to James Chen, and then we move on. It's funny.
Well done. I approve of that. So.
Yeah, so there's a way to use it. You can use it if you use it jokingly and then correct it and get the shout out to the appropriate. Yeah, so there you go.
That's awesome. Yeah, just a couple of other ones that I'll throw out there, like Magic Series, which is a lot of people use to describe the chain order for buttons in X-Men Children of the Atom and stuff. That was coined by Tom Cannon. and then like launcher and flying screen, OTG. That's all me.
OTG.
That's all me.
OTG was you?
Mm-hmm. I'm the first
Damn.
person to use OTG for in like X-Men Children. Oh, I think it was Marvel Superheroes that I first used the word OTG in my combo fact to describe that, and that's where that came from. So, yeah.
That's pretty dope. I mean, there's so many more terms, but I think the point is that a lot of these, it's kind of hard to tie like the origin, but they exist and everyone knows them. Like when I played CE in Pakistan, you know, I did cross up with jab throw. The Watson.
Really?
How crazy is that? How crazy is that, dude? You know what I mean? Like that's how universal. That's how universal all these things are. This language that we speak when we play these games. So I figured, you know, you were the guy to ask. Yeah.
They called it the Watson. That's so awesome, dude.
Yeah. They know about it, man.
Oh man.
Word travels. It's crazy.
That's so cool.
Yeah, man. All right. We're going to do something else different that I've never done.
Okay.
Sorry. I'm going to make you make a...
No, you're going to do this to me.
Never done this. I'll help you out. So we already know this guy goes here.
Right.
All right. I got you started off. We don't have to do all the old characters. We
Right.
can just do like old Ken, old Ryu, but... Let's go ahead and make a quick tier list together.
I mean, like, it's tough because Akuma should more be S plus, right? Like,
right.
He should be.
So he's S plus. Let's just assume he was up here, but we'll keep him here for now. But let's just assume you would have been up here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for me, S tier, I think the two best characters in the game are Vega and Dhalsim. Right. Vega, both new, obviously. That's what I've always believed. I always believed that these two are the best characters in the game. And do you want them to be in order in the row as well?
No, that's going to be... We don't have to spend too much crazy time. It's just for fun conversation.
Okay, good, because that way I won't get yelled at by some people. Because I know there's a lot of, you know, I don't want Jimmy Bones to get mad at me for putting Balrog above Chun-Li, you know.
No. Well, he's gonna be my next guest, so.
Oh dang! Okay.
But we're gonna record soon, so he won't see this by the time it goes out. You're good.
So I do think that the next tier under there is Balrog and Chun-Li in A. So Balrog and Chun-Li, and then Oh Sagat, I would put in there too as well.
This one, okay.
This is where it starts getting a little fuzzy. I might be easier going from the bottom up from this point. Yeah. You could probably just put Cammy in D because that's clearly where she is. So Cammy's in D, Zangief's probably in D as well. Unfortunately, as those are my two favorite characters. Let me see. And then, like, Blanca, I want to say is like between C and D, but I mean, probably putting him in D right now is most fair. And this is where it starts getting kind of tricky because this is really where it depends on who you talk to at this point. In B, I would definitely put Ryu in there. Put Ryu. I would put Guile in there. I would put DJ in there. And only because of what's been happening recently, I might even put Fei Long up there. He's one of those characters that keeps going up and down. Like Fei Long and T-Hawk both kind of belong in this B or C tier, but we'll put them in B for now. T-Hawk obviously only if you
let's put both.
The trickiest thing about T-Hawk to me is that T-Hawk like has no bad he has a lot of bad matchups, but his worst matchup is Cammy, but no one plays Cammy. So like
he struggles against Cammy and Blanca. I mean, he still has a tough match against like Ryu, but these are kind of struggle matches here.
And here's the part that gets really weird for me, because I had always considered Dictator as a very, very strong character. But as time has moved on, like, it's really been kind of proven that he's not as strong as he used to be. Because if you asked me 10 years ago, clearly Bison's up there, like, in A tier. Because for me, it was like Dhalsim and Shadaloo were like the best characters. I didn't even have Chun-Li up there. I thought Bison was one of the best. So I would probably still put Dictator in B right now, because I'm not convinced he's that bad yet. And so
No, that's a fair placement.
C, I would probably put Honda and Ken in there. Honda is another one that's tough for me. It's just because Honda is so polarizing depending on who he fights, right? So he's either he's S tier against some characters, and then he's F tier against other characters.
Yeah, basically Honda is the perfect team character, because now if you run up against, like, you know, Zangief, like you said, or even some of the top tiers like Dhalsim, he's able to fight. Claw, he's able to fight. Boxer, he's able to fight.
Yeah.
Like, kind of not bad. If you weigh out all his matchups, then he's kind of a decent tier.
Right.
But then he loses against, like, DJ horribly, or you know. So it just depends.
I always made the joke that if you made a character that at round 1 start, he automatically does a pixel of damage to the opponent, and he's completely invincible and can't move, and he can only die to fireballs, he would be the same tier as Honda. Because it's kind of where he's at right now. But yeah. I mean, because, you know, a lot of the strong characters like a Dhalsim, a Chun-Li, a Sagat can blow up Honda, he probably drops him down a little bit more to C tier. You know, because the characters that he does destroy, like a Zangief, like a Cammy, you can see are obviously bad, and so that probably pushes him down a little bit more. At this point in time, for O characters like O.Ryu, I would probably put into the B tier as well, because just it's fundamentally really strong. A new Sagat, I would probably put in C tier. N. Sagat, I would probably put C tier. And then I don't know if anybody else is actually worth really...
Yeah, not right now, except I think Old Boxer is a sleeper. I think...
Honda is another one.
Yeah, he's good. And I think Old Fei Long, I think those 3 characters are kind of sleepers right now.
Yeah.
We just have New Hawk left. I put Old Hawk in B, so New
Hawk. Oh, that's right, that's right. A New Hawk I would probably put maybe in B or C, because it's really largely the same, but obviously Old Hawk has a lot of advantages. So yeah, that's probably more accurate at this point.
All right, now everyone's going to take a snapshot, post it on Twitter, and say James Chen has made the official ST tier list.
Oh, man.
Everyone's in a rage. But
yeah,
no, this was fun. This was fun, I think. And, you know, some of these, a lot of these things I would say I can agree with for sure. The top gets a little bit fuzzy. I think this is still kind of debated as far as like where Chun sits.
Right.
But yeah, I think Claw, Sim are pretty much up there. For me personally, it's at the current moment, Claw and Chun are the same, like even tier.
Ooh,
immediately after that's Dhalsim, immediately after that's Boxer.
Okay.
And then you jump to the next tier with Old
So
Sagat.
you're on the Lord Jimmy Bones camp then.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I mean, apart from, like, Chun just has all the tools, but then if you look at Auto-Chun, like, Auto-Chun and Mao are the 2 best players in the world that play Claw Chun, so it just makes sense.
Right.
The results also, like, weigh in that favor, too, but, I mean, just today, I'm not sure if you follow the European scene, but Golkar Jack from the UK beat Zagi in a tournament online. Zagi plays Chun-Li. And awesome Chun. And even a tournament that I hosted a few months back for the European scene.
Who did the other person play?
Golkar Jack plays Guile.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And you know, so people are saying, yeah, like even mid-tier Guile, like he's able to put up a decent fight against Chun. Some people think it's close to even. They even did a 1st to 5, like as an exhibition match after a tournament some months back, and Golkar Jack with Guile is able to beat Zagi there too. And Zagi's a beast; he's a cyborg. Yeah. So
I mean, he's one of the guys that blew me up at Fightcade Offline, dude. I could not beat him. I could not beat him at all, no matter how hard I tried.
Strong.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing for me is that Balrog is so explosive, and he like invalidates a couple of other characters completely. So that's kind of why I give him the edge. And you know, and I just think if you have low rush into headbutt, you can't be like you have to be one of the best characters in the game. If you have
a strong 50-50.
If you have a headbutt that's safer than every other DP in the game and has more invincibility, like it's hard. But I will say at the highest levels, Chun-Li is absolutely one of the most annoying characters to fight against, for sure.
Yeah, for a good chunk of the cast. So, anyhow, that was a fun little exercise, just, playing tier list. I wanted to touch back on the Tokido match that we saw, because the topic I wanted to bring up was about the multi-game specialist and how, playing with your heart and now having to juggle multiple games, it's really hard. And Tokido was someone, he entered every tournament and would get either grand finals or win almost every tournament he was entering at one point, multi-game. But once Street Fighter 4 was getting very competitive was when he started letting all of that go. It's like, how do you feel about, being a multi-game player in, 2020 plus?
I think it's one of the hardest things to do in the world, and which is why I think Sonic Fox is just so exceptional. Sonic Fox, obviously Tokido could still do it probably if he wanted to, but Kazunoko, Dogura, Goichi, these guys are just like ridiculous that they can play so many different games. But Tokido, his is such an interesting story because someone was asking me, like, what would you say as these players? Are they a heart, mind, or body player? And I was kind of giving my answers, and someone asked me about Tokido, and my answer was, he's a cheap player.
I was gonna say he's all of them, but yeah, he's also cheap.
Like, because before he was known as Murder Face, we called him Dirty Tokido. He was just known as Dirty Tokido, which is why one of my Evo trailers, I basically joked that he's a dirty player because when we had Hyper Street Fighter 2 at Evo, he played CE Bison. When Soul Calibur 5 was the game, he played Viola. When we played Super Turbo, he played Claw. He basically just picked whatever was the optimal thing to win. And where he could, when they played Third Strike, he played Urien because Urien had unblockables and he could just learn that in training mode, and he could just kill everybody. So it was kind of the same thing that he did in Street Fighter 4. He figured out Akuma had a vortex, and he was able to kind of play a one-player game at that point in time, which actually kind of means that Tokido might be more of a body player than anything, just being able to do what he does in training mode effectively. But Akuma got nerfed to the point where Tokido couldn't easily rely on just Akuma Vortex, I win, because they added like the delayed wake up and things like that. But he had gotten so accustomed to using Akuma, he didn't want to change. And he's even said this in interviews that towards the end of Street Fighter 4, he said, I had to actually learn how to be a better player, and really get into that next level instead of just relying on overpowered things, really starting to learn to rely on himself. As a result...
go ahead.
No, I was about to say, as a result, I think he might be one of the only perfect blends of heart, mind, and body right now. He's so strong in so many different areas, and that's why I think he was one of the best multi-game players. He had it in him the whole entire time. Maybe laziness prevented him from getting to that next level. It's like, if I can win by just roll canceling something 17 times, why do I need to learn strategy, right? So, at this point, though, he's just gotten so good at everything that he's definitely one of the best that's ever played fighting games.
Yeah, I wanted to say, regarding multi-game specialists, because there was a bunch back then. There was Sako, Haitani, Daigo, all amazing players, but I think Tokido was the one who, towards the tail end of Street Fighter 4, really started to unlock, all three aspects of, the mind, body, heart, basically for Street Fighter.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I forget if it was not the last time I went to Japan, but the 2 times before that, I bumped into him at the airport of all places, at LAX, and this was a week or 2 after Evo. He went to do Jenga with Smash Brothers players.
That's right.
It was weird. Yeah. So we were on the same flight, and I was talking to him. Well, hey, tough loss against Problem X. And so we talked about Street Fighter 5, and I asked him if he really enjoys it. He goes, yeah. I said, why? And he goes, because you actually have to think a lot, because one mistake is death, and he likes those high pressure situations. He's like, I know it's like not a popular opinion, but he really appreciated Street Fighter V for what it was worth.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, like, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm gonna, go to Japan for ST tournament. He goes, they still play that? So they still play that? I'm like, yeah, man.
You're like, what do you mean? That's funny.
But just hearing from him that, like, you could tell he's applying everything that he's learned into Street Fighter V, and that's why he's, the sharpest Street Fighter V player, like between him and Punk.
And, I talked about how in Street Fighter 4 at EVO, we saw the transition between Heart, into the Mind winning, and what the person in the middle was Infiltration. Infiltration is another one of those players that I think perfectly encapsulates the three, tied together. And the reason why I bring him up is because early on in Street Fighter V, that was Tokido's biggest rival. And so I really do think that Tokido's growth, a lot of it is based off of his rivalry with Infiltration, I think, because Infiltration was the perfect of all three. So Tokido wasn't going to outmind or out-heart Infiltration. Tokido wasn't going to be able to beat him on those fronts. So he had to kind of learn how to also be the perfect blend of all three. So I really do think a lot of where Tokido's strength comes from does come from Infiltration, to be honest. So
that's pretty sick, man. I heard also in an interview you mentioned that when you do commentary, rather than just talking about the game, you talk about the players, because like we have to tell a story. It's one of my inspirations also for doing this podcast. Is like it's more than just us playing a game. There's like a reasoning behind it, and there's things happening. There's friendships, rivalries, all that good stuff. If you want to tell me what your favorite storyline in FGC is, and then second part of that, your own personal storyline, your favorite moment. I
mean, for me, I thought like in terms of storyline, like I talk about this a lot because, Dragon Ball, when it first came out, was fueled so much by the Goichi and Sonic Fox storyline.
Yeah, that was crazy.
I mean, right? And like, who didn't watch it? Like every time they played each other, it was like, yo, Neo and Morpheus are about to fight, and like everyone runs down the hall, and like you have to see this now, right?
Because they're moving too fast for us to see the screen though.
And that's the thing, right? That's what shows you that the game doesn't matter. When Justin Wong is playing Killer Instinct Season 1 and he's beating everybody by being Justin Wong, that's the story, right? And so that to me is super important, and that's why, in my opinion, it's more important to talk about those things. I don't know if this is my favorite story about that, but like my favorite story in the fighting game community, but the year that Mena RD won Capcom Cup, that was also the year that Nemo got 4th place or 3rd place or whatever. And during the course of the tournament, every time Nemo or Itazan got on stream, I kept mentioning their rivalry. Like I'd be like,
yeah, we know.
Yeah, like Itazan, at least he's not fighting against Nemo, or Nemo hates grapplers, especially. And like I had someone, I think, tweet me, was like, why do you keep bringing up that story? It's so stupid. Like, even when it's not even happening, you keep bringing it up. And I'm like, it's a storyline to tell. And then the handshake happened in top 8, where Nemo beats Itazan, walks up and extends his hand, doesn't even look at him and looks to the side. And it was one of the best moments of that tournament. And for a lot of people who didn't know about their rivalry, because I kept talking about it, that's what made that moment that much more impactful. And, to me, that's always one of my, this might be one of my favorite, justifications for me for talking about these things. Is because to me, you're going to be much more invested in the game when you want to root for someone or root against somebody. So even if you are like F-Champ, like if I commentated F-Champ before, and I'm talking about a lot of people who've been banned before, but who are banned now, but obviously they're controversial figures and stuff. But every time he got on commentary, I would talk about how his whole goal is to annoy you, is to be a jerk and really get under your skin, and that's part of his style. And a lot of people ended up hating him. But as a person who used to watch a lot of poker on ESPN, when it got really popular, players like Phil Hellmuth were important for like Mike Mattisau. You know, these guys were the villains. When they were on the table, you wanted them to lose.
Yeah, because Phil Hellmuth talks so much crap, dude. you just want to beat him.
He's
right?
a jerk, dude. Yeah. But then, you know, you have the Daniel Negreanu's that everybody loves, the Phil Ivies, because he's like the John Choi.
Daigo,
the Daigo, right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he
right?
got the reads, man.
Yeah, and he's stoic, whereas Daniel Negreanu is more like the vibe because he's like loud and he's friendly and you like him and all this stuff. And like to me, you know, again, Derek Daniels, shout outs to him. He was the one who told me the only reason why poker's getting popular now on TV is because, one, they have the whole cams now, so they can highlight those times when Daniel Negreanu is like, you have queen six, and the guy's like, fuck, I have queen six, you know? Like, they could do that, and they also really honed in on the personalities. They started focusing on the people, and they would do like, here's our profile piece on Chris Jesus Ferguson, here's our profile piece on, you know, this person, you know, and if you actually watch my Evo trailers that I did, so I've done like 3 or 4 Evo trailers, and if you actually watch them, the progression of the game being the highlight slowly shifts towards the player being the highlight. And so there's that one that's like my better, you know, my speed is better.
Is better than your better.
Yeah, which I totally stole from a Nike ad campaign because I love that. I saw that Nike campaign and I was like, I love this. And so I made an homage / parody. But that one is all players. It's all players. The previous one, I highlight the players, but it shows their highlight in game. And the previous one to that was like all players and stuff like that. But like, I'm in all game, but you can see the transition as I go that it's more about the players. And it's something that, like I said, I talked with Derek early on. And so it's something I really believed in. And when I first did commentary, it really was about like, oh, this is -3 and you should do this. And this is plus this and da-da-da-da. And eventually I was like, I don't think... Like a lot of other people, like David got really good at that, Sajam got really good at that, and I thought to myself, I don't need to do this anymore. And I think it's more important if I focus on that storyline aspect, on the emotional aspect. And so I feel like I'm a very empathic person, and a lot of times on commentary, I'll be like, I think he was thinking this was gonna happen. This is what happened, and so this was his reaction or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And I did this at the Evo Reloaded tournament that Watson threw. And my co-commentator was like, nah, I don't think so. I think he was trying to do this. And then that player came up to me and was like, I heard the commentary. He was like, 100% you were right, what I was thinking. You know? Yeah. And so like, I try to focus on that kind of thing on commentary because I think that's really important, you know, focusing on the emotion of the moment and, you know, always telling the story that Ricky likes to stare at her opponent in between rounds and stuff like that. I think that's really cool. And yeah, so that's kind of where I gained that focus from. I mean, if I wanted to have like my favorite story, probably was when CVS1 first came out. I was known as the combo video maker, as the FAQ writer, and those players were never good. And then the very first Southern Hills Golfland tournament, the first one for CVS1, I get there and I send Vi to losers bracket. Vi comes back in grand finals and beats me because he's Vi. But
he got the Vi buff, so
yeah. But then, you know, the next one, I got second place to Vi again, and people were like, "Hey, he's actually good." So that was actually a pretty gratifying moment at that point in time. So obviously I suck at everything now, but it's a different story. Well, I don't play as much as I used to.
No, but I know like what you want to focus on is really trying to get as many people in the world to understand why we do what we do.
Yeah.
Like, you've sacrificed so much, you put so much time into this, and we're all so grateful because if you think about a lot of the highlight FGC moments of Street Fighter, like, you were there either on commentary or at the tournament, like in some way, shape, or form, not just for Street Fighter 2, but a bunch of Street Fighters or like events that you're doing commentary for. Like, everyone knows at the end of Evo you're probably gonna cry. You know, like, we're all just waiting for it, but you create those moments, and I think it's important that it's not only about like what's happening in the game, it's about again, like, connecting with the people, you know, making everyone relatable. So
I mean, for me, it's not about like, obviously, you know, it'd be cool if we could make a bunch of money off of this stuff. That's not the goal. The goal is just to make it so that guys like Justin, guys like, you know, Sonic Fox, just guys like, you know, Ricky Ortiz, or everybody who plays fighting games can make a living off of it. And again,
those who treat it like a job should be able to make a living, because, you know, they're putting in the hours, you know, they're working on the technique, they're building their community through streaming and all this. Like, it's a job.
And the talent, like if you know fighting games, like, you know what Sonic Fox is doing is unprecedented and unheard of. Like, they are clearly like you know, we are witnessing history watching Sonic Fox play. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's like a Tomo, but we have way more footage.
Yeah, and it's these players are so good at what they do, and you know, for me, it hurts to know that, because like, if you watch LeBron James in a highlight run down the floor, jump in the air, and part the sea and slam dunk. Like, even if you hate basketball or you don't know anything about basketball, if you watch this on SportsCenter, we're at a stage in our lives where we already assume that's amazing what he did, right? Yeah. We just accept that as a thing. Video games don't have that yet. Some people still consider it a waste of time. Some people still think fighting games are mashing buttons, which is why the Daigo moment is so important, because it wasn't even necessarily what Daigo did. It was how nuts the audience went, so that if you don't know anything about video games, you don't have to. Obviously, someone did something that required a huge amount of skill. Otherwise, the audience would not react that way. And it's why that video was so viral, because you don't have to know fighting games to appreciate it and to understand how that somebody did something great. And that's the phase that I'm trying to help get fighting games to. That if you just see a highlight of a fighting game, even if it doesn't look like anything crazy happened, it's a highlight, and you just naturally assume someone did something great, because that's what we don't have right now. And, you know, in the greater esports kind of as well. And so that's kind of my goal for fighting games is I hope I can help get it to a point where you see a fighting game moment on an ESPN SportsCenter, and you see it, and you just, through casual knowledge, understand that it's an amazing moment. And, you know, you already know enough about it just through word of mouth that you're like, oh, that's pretty sick. He landed like some big super flashy move, you know, like, and it's cool. And that's kind of the hope. That's kind of the goal for me.
So you want to like capture the essence of, you know, the moment, the electricity, you know, the hype that was there. And yeah, I remember watching Daigo parry for the first time. I didn't really know much about fighting games or fighting game scene. I don't know if I saw it on like eBaum's World or whatever was that website. I forgot where I saw it, but I remember watching it and getting goosebumps because of, you know, the way that the parry sounded, and everyone's getting hype. I'm like, oh, this is crazy. And then, you know, later on I found out everything, but I think maybe a lot of people got introduced to the scene because of that one moment. So it was cool. It was
honestly, I tell this story a lot, like, because we were on the second floor of a building of the student center in Cal Poly Pomona, and so the room was small. Like, when you pan back in the camera, it looks like a big crowd, but if you compare it to what we have nowadays, it's like nothing, right? It's like a fraction of the size. But let me tell you, the volume and the amount of people jumping up and down and stomping, the room was shaking. I know if you were outside, you could have heard that. I know in my heart that you would have heard just this rumble and been like, what the heck? And I remember as the parry was going, I'm like, if the camera panned over like maybe a little bit more to the right, I was like sitting right there because I was right next to Seth while he was recording that. And I just remember while the parry was going, I stopped watching the game and I turned and looked at the audience. And I saw how crazy everybody was going. And it was the first moment in my life that I was like, yo, this really actually could be a thing. Like, it's not just me being a fanboy and just like, I hope everyone like, when I saw that, I was like, this could be a thing, like people could watch this. This is like the most ridiculous thing ever. And, you know, it really did, like, weirdly enough, I mean, it's corny to say it, but it really did change my life, that parry moment, because it really kind of made me dig a little harder into trying to keep going with the fighting game stuff. So it was an important moment for me.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people will say it was basically the most historic moment of FGC. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's for a reason. I think it, you know, touched people or impacted people in different ways.
Yeah. That, and I do also have to give a shout out to the first Street Fighter 4 Grand Finals, because it also happened to just be about Daigo and Justin as well. Perfect.
That's the storyline. Yeah, perfect. That was a perfect. Because that Street Fighter 4 revived the fighting game scene. I remember it was dead. There was a little bit of excitement from HDR, like before it came out. And it just happened around the same time as Street Fighter 4. I remember seeing Street Fighter 4 graphics for the first time. Like, holy shit, this is crazy. But yeah, that Evo, I actually watched it live with my brother, he plays fighting games, but he doesn't understand all the stuff, and like we watched it together, and I'm kind of doing commentary for him and explaining as best as I can, like what's going on. I'm like, yo, you have no idea. Like, this is a story right here. This is crazy. And he knew about the Daigo parry at that point, and yeah, that Grand Finals was that was special. The
Grand Finals for the game that brought back the fighting game community happens to be the same two players that were in that Daigo parry. I mean, you could not have asked for a better.
It's a work of fiction.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's crazy. Oh man. So while we're on the topic, actually, I only have a little bit of handful of questions left.
Yeah,
and then just some community questions. So it was about the future of FGC, which I think you kind of already went over as far as ideally where we want to be. But what about Street Fighter 6? What do you think? How do you think the game should be treated, or would you consider being on board on the SF6 team?
This is such a hard topic to talk about, because I really felt like Street Fighter 5 could have been the one. I felt like Street Fighter 5 could have been the game that came out and really have taken over. And, you know, around that time, I had famously said, if Street Fighter dies, then the fighting game community dies. And a lot of people got super mad at me for saying that. They were like, what are you biased and da-da-da-da-da and all this stuff. But I mean, I truly believed it at the time, because I talked about earlier, Street Fighter being a cultural phenomenon. You know, everywhere I go, if I mention Street Fighter, people still know what I'm talking about. Like Uber drivers and Lyft drivers who are clearly 50, 60 years old or whatever like that. They're like, oh yeah, I remember that. I played that, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so Street Fighter's at that level. The nice thing about it is, you know, with Street Fighter 5, you know, it came out, the release was terrible, and, you know, it really kind of hurt the a lot of how big Street Fighter 5 could have become. So much to the point that it's still kind of a meme to talk about Street Fighter 5 like it's boring, you know, it's every character does the same thing, which is not even true anymore. But you know, because of that though, it actually did allow for a lot of these other games to get the spotlight. Like Tekken clearly was more important for a couple of years than Street Fighter 5. You know, it was a bigger tournament scene, it was getting hype. You know, Tekken 7 has wonderful presentation and the slow-mos and all these things like that. There was a time, and you know, Dragon Ball came into the highlight, and so it really kind of allowed a lot of these other games to kind of jump into the highlight. So it's going to be a little bit tougher for Street Fighter 6. In my opinion, the best way to do Street Fighter 6, honestly, is to not look at Street Fighter 5. Make a fighting game, and I've said this a lot, make a fighting game with a goal in mind, because Street Fighter 5 was built off of the complaints of Street Fighter 4. Everything that happened in that game was a complaint of Street Fighter 4. I hate uppercut FADCs. Okay, well, now you can't cancel them, and they're more punishable than ever.
Yeah, you can't throw out DPs anymore. Actually, we did commentary for the Matsun Kusamundo match at Canada Cup Grand Finals. You said a comment that Matsun won with the jab DP, and it couldn't be more poetic, because you know, you're able to throw out a dragon punch when you feel it,
Right.
and it works, and you know, it doesn't trade with anything. It doesn't have to be an EX, and it just like he just ended it on a headbutt. He just threw it out. Because you were just so happy about that uppercut.
Yeah, I had a, like, not to delve into a whole nother story, but I had a conversation with someone, you know, I had talked about how I don't like the uppercuts in Street Fighter V, and, you know, they were like, but they're so intelligent use. Like, here's a clip, like, you see Zaffarino do a V reversal against Rob TV, and then he does an uppercut and he beats Rob TV's crouching medium kick, and someone's like, you see, this was so smart, it was such a great play. And I was like, right, but here is my point. If I walk up with Ken to Guile and Guile does a crouching medium kick and I jab uppercut it, you get hyped because I jab uppercutted your leg. When Zaffarino uppercuts Rob TV's crouching medium kick in that situation, the reason why it's hype and smart is because Sagat's V reversal puts you at a range where the fast buttons generally can't reach the opponent anymore. So they can't take their turn for free. So Karen can't throw out a light punch to take her turn. So Rob TV decided to throw out a slower button that hits on the 7th frame, but Sagat's medium tiger uppercut, or whichever tiger uppercut he did, is strike invulnerable starting at frame 3 and stuff. So he read that, and by the time I've explained this to you, you're just not hype anymore.
There's just like, yeah, you're right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like you just lost that. And so, you know, that, anyways, that's completely side story, and you know, it's just kind of part and parcel of the you know, I miss in-roll DPs.
It's hard to recreate the magic of Street Fighter 2, I think. But oddly enough, right now with like Alpha 2 and ST being played, I can tell you, like, just this week alone, there was Monday Night Fights. Then on Tuesday, I'm you know, working with Vayu to do Wednesday Night Fights. So it's the qualifiers up until top 8.
Right.
Wednesday's the top 8. I think there's also a European tournament today. Thursday, I don't think there's anything. Friday, I'm doing an ST tournament. So pretty much almost every day of the week, there's either an Alpha 2 or an ST, then there's Frosty.
Nice.
So Alpha 2, because it got like kind of overshadowed by Alpha 3, wasn't a fully fleshed out game. Alex put out a tier list, Boss put out a tier list. There's conflict between the two. And Alex said, let me show you why my tier list makes sense. And Boss said, let me show you why. And it's so crazy because this feels like a new Street Fighter title, but it has old Street Fighter mechanics. Like, this feels like Street Fighter 6 to me. You know what I mean?
Cool. That's funny.
If you're following like Alpha 2 right now, it's super hype. You know, John was telling me, oh, did you see the new tech about the way that the frames work? So if you jump in Alpha 2 and you activate, as long as you don't press a button, you have full invisibility up until 1 frame after you land. So even if Dalsim does an empty jump, right, and he's in the air for like forever, as long as he doesn't press a button, he has full invincibility. And this is stuff that's just being like figured out now.
Right.
So yeah, it's such a crazy time, and that's the kind of game that I want. A game that's as balanced, you know. Yeah, like ST has cheap stuff, but it's still a fair game, and you know, good people, a good amount of the cast has a good chance to win. But it's exciting, it's intuitive. You already know, like, it has a you know, it has good priority. That's why it works. Like, I want a game like that.
Right. Yeah.
So, you know, as someone like you who understands like all the different game mechanics, like you already talked about 2D, 3D, you know, the versus games. You know, if you would ever consider, if Capcom said, hey, like, you know, want you on board, do you think that you're a fit person for designing the mechanics of a game or working on a game?
I mean, like, I'm a person with massive imposter syndrome. Like, I think I suck at everything. So Nathan, stop hitting the microphone. I think I suck at everything. And so, like, I question my commentary skills a lot. I question myself as a fighting game player and all that stuff like that. And so I generally very rarely say anything positive about myself. Having said that, I would say absolutely yes. I would be.
You torture yourself and work on Street Fighter. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, because that's the thing, right? I mean, you talked about the New Legacy, and I know people have gotten on my case because I don't play New Legacy and I sound really kind of whiny and angry about it and stuff like that. It's just because part of me believes that I can't play it without getting mad at the choices that some people make, because I keep thinking I would do better. You know,
Dang, so
so that's really kind of where it comes down to. Like, I don't really have anything against it. I think it's cool that he made it, especially someone as knowledgeable about the game as Born to SPD. You can't ask for someone with more justification and logic behind the decisions that he's been making. But still, like, I think to myself, no, you know, you shouldn't take away the charge trick for Chun-Li and Super, you know, things like that. And I just...
Yeah, I remember your comments. I remember. I had to message you after that, like, bro, we should talk about New Legacy.
Yeah. So, again, like I said, I have nothing wrong with it, but a lot of it, like, another one is the Marvel 3 one. There's a Marvel 3 one where they added, like, Ken as a character, and there's, like, they've tried to put in Captain Marvel, like, you know, they tweak it and stuff like that, and it gets kind of Mugen-y, but even still, like, the people designing it are probably making really good decisions, and still, like, I don't want to touch it. I just don't want to touch it because I know I'm going to see something and get mad and think to myself, no, I wouldn't have done this. So,
yeah, I mean,
trust me,
you have that purist mentality probably too. So
it's not even, like I said, it's not even New Legacy. Like, I won't even touch that Marvel thing. I don't touch that Street Fighter V thing with the purple bars where everybody can do like ridiculous combos. You know, like I won't touch any of that stuff because I just know that I have too much pride in my own ability. I feel like to balance stuff that I would just get mad.
That's why you're the perfect person then for Street Fighter 6. But on the subject of New Legacy, and I support it because I know that it's not an ST replacement. It's not the intention. It's more. It's a project. I always see it as like parallel universe. Like, what if in another world we had everything, but then like there was no ST, it was New Legacy, and then someone made another version that like kind of broke some of the characters a little bit. Right. You know, you got wall dives and knockdown or whatever it is. So for me, it's fun and just to like explore it. Yeah. It's a little bit of fun, and then you actually learn more about ST or learn more about fighting games because tweak this one thing and you know, it affects this. And I think also in an interview that you did with Quest, you talked about balancing a character. It's about changing the result of a move so that the frequency. Yeah, if you can go over that. I don't want to like butcher it.
For old games, right? I mean, for like Street Fighter V, you have the ability to change bigger things because we're in that phase right now. But for old games, we know what we enjoy out of the game. And, you know, you're going to have players like NKI who love Chun-Li. You know, that was the thing, right? In HDR, NKI hated the way Chun-Li turned out. Jumpsuit Jesse hated the way Fei Long turned out. I hated the way Cammy turned out. And so I absolutely acknowledge that HDR is more balanced. But the thing is, for legacy games like that, I don't think it's right to take away things from people necessarily because they fell in love with it for a reason. So for me, in an old game like that, so for Alpha 3 or for ST, I would try my best to let people be able to keep doing the things that they do, but balance it by changing the result. So for example, in Third Strike, I would make it so that Ganajin does what Ganajin does, it's just the meter is longer. So it takes longer to build up again, right? Or make it so that Hoyokusen does less damage. So now you can still have two of them and be a jerk with it and still play your game, but it just doesn't kill you instantaneously. For Super Turbo, you know, I would make it so Chun Super just doesn't do as much damage, but keep the charge because there are high-level Chun players out there that pride themselves on being able to store the Chun Super and then still do down back kick and keep it stored, or do the neutral jump and keep it stored, and you know, neat little tricks like that. I don't want to take that away from people. So if I was in charge of rebalancing ST, I would largely try to keep and you know, I've asked Born to SPD and those guys how they did it and, you know, to try to teach me, but it's hard for me to find the time for it. Although, to be honest with you, right now with the pandemic, maybe now is the best time than ever to try to do something like this. But, you know, if I did balance an ST, you know, a lot of people say that obviously I would make Cammy broken. No, I don't want to make her broken. I have very little fun with broken characters. But, you know, I would try to make it so that the characters can keep doing what they do, but I would just try to make it so that the result isn't as rewarding, or the result is more rewarding, or hey, you get to land this, but now you land further away, so you don't get the pressure mix up, but you still got to do that cool thing, right? Like, I would never take away short super from Ken, because, you know, that's like, I call that like one of the fighting game, the FGC, you know, true orgasms of, you know, fighting game community. Like, everyone just wants to land short super with Ken. Like, that's all anybody who plays Ken wants to do. Like, Fei Long, his chicken wing into Stand Fierce, Rekka, that's another one. Like, you just want to land that, and when you do, you feel so proud of yourself. You feel so good. So, like, when Serlin took that away from Fei Long in HDR, I was like, what are you doing? Like, that is, like, what Fei Long players live to land, you know, heavy chicken wing into Fierce Rekka. Like, that is, when they land that, they just feel like a god, you know. And,
yeah, that's true.
And I don't want to take that away. I understand, like, as like I said, people, Third Strike community doesn't like me because I've talked a lot of negativity about Third Strike because I personally don't like parries. But in the last year and a half or two, like, I have kind of almost 180'd on it. Like, I actually still don't like parries as a mechanic, but I understand what they do for a game. They allow a player to feel like a god, and they allow an audience to gasp at a situation, and it's not easy to land. It's such a powerful mechanic for the enjoyment of a game, and that is so important. So, having invincible uppercuts to uppercut Guile's crouching medium kick, even Zangief's stand light kick into SPD, you feel like a god because you know you can miss that pretty easily. You know, these little things like that are what make a fighting game fun. And so to me, that's in the interest of balance versus fun. I want to keep someone's ability to store Chun-Li's super and do down back medium kick and still get the super because they'll feel like a god. You know what I mean? Because they already feel like a god doing it now, and I don't want to take that away from them. I don't want to take away heavy chicken wing into Fierce Rekka because you feel like a god when you do that now. I want you to be able to still feel that way. So that's kind of my philosophy for rebalancing an old game, is keeping players to be able to do the stuff that they just love. Like, as annoying as Grenadian combos are, if you can do the palm, you know, Kara palm, like, that makes you feel good. I don't want to take that away from you. So that's kind of my mindset when it comes to balancing.
That makes complete sense.
Yeah.
I definitely I can see that same perspective. I want to say what Born, and just talking about New Legacy, because for me, like, HD Remix, I mean, I don't know if you want to talk about it. I'm not particularly fond of it. Like,
right.
Hyper Street Fighter 2 also kind of like a dead game.
Me and when me and Damdai were hanging out at Seasons Meetings that one year, HDR had already been out, and both of us kept saying to each other, well, I really wish someone would come out with a more balanced version of ST, but it just doesn't exist, you know? So trust me, I'm with you on HDR. So.
But yeah, like with New Legacy, I think the mission was, I want to take the bad matchups and try to balance them out as much as possible. So a lot of the inspiration, I feel like, got taken from hyper fighting, especially with the old characters. And Born SPD changed the old characters quite a bit. Anyhow, that's a whole different topic. But yeah, I definitely understand your perspective as well, and like, it makes sense to me.
And that's the thing, right? So I mean, for me, I have no qualms about New Legacy. I think it's awesome that it exists. I'm glad that people enjoy it and play it and everything like that. You know, I don't have any problems with it. It's, you know, it's a different game. As you know, as he said, as everybody else says, it's not meant to be a replacement. And when you see it that way, you know, I do appreciate it, especially from somebody as knowledgeable as Born to SPD, and, you know, as carefully as he's done it, and with the good intentions of making the matchups better. And I think that's really cool. You know, again, I don't want anybody to think that I'm mad that he made it, or that, you know, oh, I will never play it because I'm a snob. You know, like, I mean, there is part of me that is a snob because, like I said, I feel like I would do it better.
It's the Tekken side of me, though.
but at the same time, I have no qualms with it existing. and I think it's cool that a lot of people like to play it. And who knows, maybe I will just sit down and play some old Geef on there just to try them out and see if I can gain that hyper fighting fun again.
Yeah, I mean, he did get patched, so he's a little more fixed now. Before season
broken.
1, yeah, he was kind of OD. But while we're on the subject of balance, surprise, I got one more match that we're gonna watch here.
Oh no! You brought this one up, okay?
Oh hell yeah, I'm gonna bring this up. We're talking about balance. Was this a counter pick or was this actually Sherlin's main character? I feel like this was a hard counter pick.
So, this was one of Sirlin's main characters. He had a few main characters, but this was one of his main characters. Now, for me, like, remember how I said I love Zangief versus Guile in Hyper Fighting? Yeah. I liked this match too. And my strategy of it is basically kick lariat the limbs on an empty jump. And if I can't get in, then I back off full screen and try again, basically.
Yeah,
and if I can,
lariat.
Yeah, if I can kick lariat you, that's the whole goal. Oh, and he didn't die. He didn't die. And then I was like, I'm just gonna jab, and I just jabbed. But you'll see in the first round, I miss it a lot. From a full screen, I jumped, kick lariat. He punched later than I expected him to. So I started adjusting my timing. See, I whiff punish, I hit the attempted whiff punish, and see, now I have the right timing there. So this is a matchup that I specialize in. I practiced this match a lot. So I was like, okay, I'm ready to do this. I'm ready to do this. And you see, I keep doing that strategy. The kick lariat is the whole key to my strategy in this fight. And so I keep doing that, and then I can finally get in, and then freaking head roll, he's out of there, and I'm so mad. And there I was testing to see if he would do it again, and he did it. He did, but then I just managed to get in and didn't give him a chance to get away at this point in time. So yeah, I did manage to beat Sirlin in this match here in Alpha 3.
I feel like back then, probably the meta was that Dhalsim was, you know, probably the best. So I thought, when I saw this match, I was like, man, is this guy really, you know, doing the whole playing to win, just going for a counter pick? But
yeah,
when I saw you did like crouch short level 3, holy shit, dude, you came to play.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, that is a bad matchup for Zangief for all intents and purposes. But again, you know, back in the day, you know, save that shit for nationals kind of thing. No Zangief played by trying to kick lariat limbs all day. Like, that just wasn't something that was common knowledge. And so I was able to take that in there and catch him by surprise, mostly in round 2. But I landed it a couple of times, and, you know, so I was able to get away with that. Honestly, like, you know, like Sirlin and I have an interesting history because I talk so much smack about HDR. We're like not really on speaking terms. I don't want people to think that we hate each other because I always talk smack about HDR. And I will fully admit that, you know, if we had kept playing that matchup for many, many sets, like, I probably would have gotten to a point where I could barely win that one. And I did get away with some surprise stuff, but I did win, and so I'm happy about that.
Yeah, and that's in the record books. Yeah. So you guys can find that on YouTube. Awesome win.
Man.
I just have a couple community questions, I guess, and we'll be able to wrap it up.
Sure.
Again, I want to say thanks for your time. This is absolutely the longest episode. We're gonna have to make it a 2-parter.
Dude, if you want me back, we can do another 4 hours some other time.
Hell yeah, yeah. I mean, we'll, you know, I'll get the community feedback. I'll see like what other topics, because I think we talked quite a bit about ST, and then we jumped to other games, and then FGC philosophy in general. But you know, maybe they want to hear more about those Evo 2002, 2003 stories. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, I would love to get you back. So yeah, some of these questions you might have already answered, so I might skip them or just paraphrase. Sure. Ned Leeds asked, what's one character you'd nerf or buff a little to make matches more interesting to watch?
Oh, is he talking about ST in particular?
Yeah, ST.
I mean, clearly the answer is Vega wall dive, right? Like, you'd have to nerf that, because right now it's just, it's dumb, and that is one of those situations where, you know, oh, I don't want to keep someone from doing what they do. But even Vega players, I think, sometimes don't necessarily feel great about wall diving you to death. As long as you allow them to wall dive you once and still get the left-right mix-up, but it doesn't knock you down, I think that's fair. I think that's fair. So that's all I would do. So Vega for sure.
All right. X64 asked, how much input did you have on HDR, and did it seem like Sherlin was on the right track during development?
Oh, that's another 4-hour episode.
Yeah, you can give us a TLDR. We could do a whole episode
I mean,
on that.
let's just put it this way. Serlin, some of my feedback definitely made it into the game. So I won't say like Serlin never listened to me. But one time, one of my coworkers walked up to me and asked me about HDR. He was like, "So, what's the story with HDR?" And then basically, he didn't leave my cube for 2 hours because I wouldn't shut up talking about it. I mean, the hardest part, okay, the TLDR for me, for my perspective, is that my problem is I didn't have enough tournament results. And Serlin believes in tournament results. And so a lot of the things that I said and suggested, he wouldn't take as seriously. Like, for example, I made a suggestion for Boxer, and he's like, go ask Boxer players. So I was like, okay. So I asked Derek, I asked Seth, and they were like, no, don't do that. And I was like, okay, so you were right, Serlin. And then Jason Cole said, hey, do this to Cammy. And Serlin said, okay. You know,
right, but you didn't get asked,
Yeah, there was no go ask the Cammy players. It was like, okay, I'll nerf Jumping Strong for Cammy because she only uses it against Dhalsim.
Dhalsim, yeah. Oh,
and I was
man.
like, what? Like, that's like the one of two strongest things that Cammy has, and you nerfed both of the two strongest things that she has. You know, so my biggest problem was I just didn't have the credentials, I think, because Serlin really believed in that aspect, you know, that unless you're a person winning, then your input doesn't have as much of an impact. And I think that kind of hurt it a little bit because he definitely listened to like Graham Wolf and Jason Cole and John Choi a lot more than he would listen to other people who didn't have the results. And that was kind of the tough thing. So I had a lot of suggestions that I think worked out pretty well that didn't make it in the game, but you know, that's the past at this point in time. And like I said, I hate this because every time I do this, I make Serlin sound like a bad guy. Serlin's one of those people that's easy for a lot of people to kind of poke fun at. I don't want to do that, which is why I try not to talk about HDR all that much. So, you know, it's water under the bridge at this point.
I mean, I do want to say, like, I get it from him, too, that it's like, you know, we're the results kind of thing, and people who are results driven will just look at, well, what's the bottom line? But the thing is, and I think the tweet was put out by, dang it, what's his name? I can't remember right now. Ryan Hart. He put out a tweet that said, like, fighting is more than just, like, the two people playing. It's about the commentators, the combo makers, you know, the people that come up with the tech.
Right.
There's so much more that goes behind it, and you could be knowledgeable, like very knowledgeable about a game and still not win a tournament, or you know what I mean, or like miss the top 8, but you might be the super genius that's, you know, giving tips to Daigo or whatever it is. And you know, that stuff holds value and holds weight. But
Phil Jackson exists. That's Greg Popovich exists. You know, they weren't the best and in fact, when you look at it, a lot of the times Magic Johnson was not a good coach. Larry Bird wasn't a very good coach. Wayne Gretzky wasn't a very good coach. You know, sometimes it's you got to look at it. You know, those are two different powers. Being able to do it and then being able to talk about it and understand it, because that's again the difference between kind of maybe the heart and the mind, right? So like Magic Johnson or even Kobe Bryant couldn't tell you exactly what Kobe could, because that's just the way he is. But like Magic Johnson might not be able to tell you exactly how he did it, the things that he did, but he definitely could feel how he did everything.
Yeah, you know? Actually, there's a lot of ST players that are like that too.
Yeah.
I feel like, or like people in our scene. Reno MD asked, after your success with commentating Tetris tournaments, are there any other games or competitions you'd like to commentate?
So people have asked me, because obviously, you know, I mean, I'm barely scraping by. I can barely live on fighting game commentary. That's just a part and parcel of the industry. We're small and everything like that, right? People have often told me, like, why don't you go commentate League of Legends or something like that? And, you know, one of my rules of commentary is to really love what you commentate. I learned this by watching a highlight reel of Street Fighter Cross Tekken. You know, Capcom obviously hired me to do commentary for that because I was doing Street Fighter 4. I hated Street Fighter Cross Tekken. And you can tell in my commentary that I don't like the game. And so when I was watching that highlight, like you could hear like some backhanded, like some subtle insults that I'm throwing out in there, you know? And I just thought to myself, if I was a Street Fighter Cross Tekken fan, I would be so mad at me. And so I swear to myself, I would never commentate anything except games that I love. And so fighting games was the main one, right? And then who knew I ever had a chance to commentate Tetris? So, you know, I was like, all right, I'll jump on this.
The pieces fell in place for you.
Nice. I like that. Nicely done. But, you know, outside of that, like, I really want to stay on the games that I like. If you haven't noticed, I mean, if you follow me on Twitter, I've been tweeting a lot about Teppen, the CCG on mobile. And so I've actually got to commentate the World Championships this last year, right? So that's a non-fighting game. But the thing is, like, I'm branching out, but I still always want to make sure it's something that I genuinely love, because, you know, people often ask me, what's your advice to be a commentator? I've commentated with people who didn't want to be there. I've commentated with people who didn't love the game they're commentating. You can tell. As soon as you love the game that you're commentating, it's very clear. Like, you could just hear it in their voice, and they get excited about everything. And so that's always my biggest advice, is just make sure you love what you commentate. If people notice, I've never commentated Dragon Ball FighterZ because I have no history with Dragon Ball, and I wasn't the biggest fan of the game. So I'm not going to disrespect the game anymore. Even if somebody was like, hey, James, here's $2,000, commentate Dragon Ball, I'd be like, no. Like, I would not do the game justice, you know?
I mean, you'll be a good spectator for it, I guess, or whatever. But yeah, I get you 100%. It's the same with, like, you know, your life choices. Like, just do something that makes you happy.
Yep.
You know, if you don't enjoy what you're doing, then it's kind of like, why do it? So,
yeah, exactly. And it makes the experience better for the viewers, too, because they can feel your enthusiasm. Yeah. And it's palpable and it's contagious. And so that's why I will always make sure I love what I commentate.
So actually, speaking of commentary, Mutant XP asked a question. He said, as one of the original pioneers of modern FGC commentary, who or what helped you develop your style of commentating?
I mean, honestly, Ultra David has a huge hand in that. It's really interesting. I was very fortunate, not only just because I was in the right position to get to do commentary from like the Wednesday night fights and stuff, but I was also very fortunate to start commentating with Ultra David, someone that I met through us arguing about how to tweak Honda in HDR on the SRK forums. You know, it's kind of interesting because it's a similar story. We both had very differing opinions on Honda, but we could tell the other person was actually logical, so we enjoyed debating about stuff. But what was good about Ultra David is that we became known as a duo, so we kept commentating with each other. And after we finished commentating, every time we go back to the hotel room or while we're sitting at the dinner afterwards, we'd be always like, so how do you think it went? What do you think we could do better? How do you think that this went? And, you know, it was one of those things that we worked really hard to improve on stuff. And it helped me. You know, David is one of those people that always is trying to improve in his craft. And him doing that kind of pushed me into doing it as well. Otherwise, I might have just kind of stuck with what I was doing. And I even mentioned earlier that I changed courses from being like the frame data guy to now I'm the empath who's trying to guess how people are feeling and stuff like that. And, you know, I wouldn't have made a lot of those decisions if it wasn't for David, you know, kind of pushing me in terms of, you know, always trying to analyze and fix things of their own commentary and stuff. And then, of course, there's Seth Killian, who I always aspire to try to be even close to, but that man has
a way with words.
You're right. I was just about to say that. He has a flower of speech that cannot be matched.
Dude, his pen game is strong. The mighty quill that he writes with.
The only commentator out there right now that I will give that is close to that is Katana Prime right now. Katana Prime does not get enough credit for his flower of speech as well. He's beautiful at that, but Seth Killian is still the master. I aspire to be that, but that just takes a certain creativity that I do not have yet.
Yeah, please nerf Seth Killian ASAP.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I was also gonna say, TOL1 was like one of the greatest tournaments to ever happen. I remember in the moment thinking like, this is perfect because, you know, from East Coast, it was me, Damdai, Mars, and Mars Gotti, and you know, Mars like, man, we got to make it to this top 8 somehow. And before we got on the stage, it was the 3 of us and Afro Legends and Damdai. You know, they had their you know,
rivalry,
little beef, but yeah, the rivalry, and so we're just hanging out, and I was like, you know, we kind of made it, guys. You know, it's four Americans in this top 8 against 4 Japanese, and then you know, commentary was done by you and Ultra David.
Yeah.
And then the grand finals, the way that it happened, the winners finals, first of all, with the losers finals, the Kusumono versus Afro Legends, how he did that crazy comeback, and then your reaction, with David. And so basically at the end of the tournament, I went to Karopi and I said, this is the best Street Fighter to have ever existed, basically, of like Super Turbo. You know, the best tournament to have happened with just everything, you know, having you guys on the commentary, the grand finals, being on England because, you know, it's such a dope stage, and you know, the rivalry stuff, and it was just so awesome. Yeah, that tournament, and I've said this on like previous episodes as well, I don't think people realize how like significant it was for Super Turbo. And yeah, you know, you and Ultra David are basically dream team. That's what when I did the shout outs to David.
No, I was about to say shout outs to Karopi as well.
Oh yeah, he kind of.
So Bob Painter, true story, was basically one of my best friends from AGSF2. Like, we used to sit there and email each other like giant emails back and forth, just like we were joking all the time. Like, he was one of my first like true internet friends. So shout outs to Mr. Bob Painter.
Yeah, I know he's kind of around, at least like on Discord and stuff. Yeah, he'd be a good guest to get on here. Yeah, I remember then when I got to do commentary with you, I was a little bit nervous because I didn't actually really do commentary up until that point. I just knew how to like kind of talk about the game. But then I was like, yeah, I'll just, you know, casually do commentary with you and you'll like carry me. But then it ended up being hype. And I think from that time I decided like, yeah, if there's, you know, more opportunities for me to do commentary, I'll do it. But I'm a little bit funky and I have different styles of doing it. I don't know, but I have high energy. It's just whatever comes to my brain, I'm just saying it.
Yeah, and honestly, I that's what I tell everybody too. Just be yourself. Don't try to be like somebody else. When I first started doing commentary, I tried to make up catchphrases like Yipes did. You know, I kept saying like dumb things. Like, I was like, oh, you're so S tier, and you know, and it just sounded so stupid coming from me. And so what do I naturally do in my normal daily routine? I make bad puns. So I just went with that, and now I'm known for making bad puns, but you know, it's my thing, it's natural, it's what I do, you know, it's one of the things, unfortunately, that I do best. So there you go.
I mean, that's what we look forward to, you know, as well in your commentary. What's he gonna say now? So, but no, it's good, and you know, again, it's a part of
be yourself.
How you basically be yourself. I think again, it's definitely the best way. Goldcard Jack, who talked about earlier, he asked, do you think Honda is Cammy's worst match?
I actually still do think that that's her worst match. I do think that, like, I famously rated it in one of NoHoHo's like gathering of information. I once famously rated it 10-0 in Honda's favor because that's how much I hate that match. I do think most Hondas play it wrong. And I think that there is a game plan for Honda that makes it so that basically Cammy can't win. I mean, I mentioned Chris Lee and Mike Creaky earlier. So Chris Lee is a Honda player, Mike Creaky is a Cammy player. And because they played all the time, that actually gave Chris Lee experience in that match. And so when you fight Chris Lee with Cammy versus his Honda, it's like hopeless. Like for the first SBO quals, I ran into him in all 3 tournaments and I could never beat him. And finally, at one point in time, Chris felt so bad that he walked out of the corner to attack me, and I won that round. He was like, no, I'm never doing that again. And then I couldn't beat him again. So like honestly, if you know how to play that matchup, I still do think it's her worst matchup because of the stored Ocho. The stored Oicho. If there was no stored Oicho, I think Cammy could win. But with it, I think it's impossible. I think it's an impossible match. So.
All right, well, Super V asked also regarding Cammy, what are your thoughts on Max 31 from France? I think it's Max 31.
Yeah.
Then there's Nakamura, Japan Soundscope. Do you think that they're able to raise the potential of Cammy now that 2020 and most of the stuff has been discovered for 2021 rather, and most of the stuff has been discovered for ST? Like, do you think there's a potential to raise Cammy's level?
I'm just gonna be the same pessimist that I always am and say no.
Expected.
Because the thing about it is, I always say this about Cammy. I will say this: she's a good character. She loses a bunch of matches 6-4, which in Super Turbo terms is actually not bad. You can actually win. Like today, you talk to people like, "Oh my God, it's a 6-4. This match is impossible."
Yeah.
But like in Super Turbo, it's like 6-4 means let's get a slight advantage. The thing is, she has 6-4 matches until the person learns the secret. And as soon as the person learns the secret, the match becomes a 2-8. And that's the thing. Most of the, like, I talked about Honda, for example. I have beaten more Hondas in tournaments than I've actually lost to Hondas in tournament. And even when I used to fight Tanya, when I first fought her, I beat her. And then I told her how to beat me. And now I can't beat her with Cammy anymore, right? I told her the secret, which was don't ever walk. Like Honda never has to walk at Cammy. If you need to move forward, you hand slap. Otherwise, if you're in the lead, you hold down back in the corner with the stored Oicho, and that's it. That's game over. If you ever walk forward, that gives all Cammy the opportunity to win. So same thing for Guile. Guile, I can beat Guile. I've beaten more Guiles at tournaments in Super Turbo than I've lost to Guiles. As soon as Guile learns how to time Crouching Fierce to trade with Jumping Strong, the fight ends. Because then he just Sonic Boom, Crouch Fierce until you die.
Yeah, basically you'll always do more damage.
Kotaka Shoten plays against Nakamura at Hey Arcade. I fought against Kotaka Shoten at Hey Arcade after an Evo Japan. He knows the secret. I couldn't touch him. And yes, I was doing damage because my Jumping Strong would trade with his Crouch Fierce, but he was doing twice the damage, so it never mattered. So basically, even though I was draining half his life, I basically had a 0% chance of winning. Every matchup has that secret on how to beat Cammy. That's the biggest problem with Cammy. And if you know that secret, it's like it becomes almost impossible to win. And that's what makes it rough for her.
I think the good point about Cammy, and this would be like you have to be on some next crazy psychic level, is her uppercut is pretty decent.
Yeah.
If you can walk up DP pokes and stuff like that,
yes,
that's a game changer. But that's but now you need to have 4 hearts or something.
Yeah. Well, that's like I said, her best things are Jumping Strong and her uppercut, and those two things got nerfed in HDR. So I was like, what are you doing? Obviously, though, she's better because they made her drill kind of stupid good. So I understand the nerf to the uppercut, but I would have not made the drill that good instead.
She's a difficult character to balance. Actually, even with the most recent patch for New Legacy when we played, Assassin, a player from Mexico, ended up beating Damdai with Cammy. And just before the tournament, maybe a week before the tournament, Born SPD was like, hey, can you test out Cammy? I feel like she's a little spammy. Well, what do you mean? So, I did a couple casual matches. I'm like, yeah, I guess she feels all right, but I wasn't a Cammy main. I was like, we'll just see, let her tournament decide. And Damdai was having a tough time dealing with it because, drills are safer and stuff like that. The spinning knuckle is a lot safer. So, yeah, it's difficult character to balance. I suppose.
It's one of those things that people don't realize about balancing. Like, you can make her drill 2 frames safer, and that instantly makes it that much more crazy, 2 frames, but it's enough. And the way the drill works right now is actually really good. In fact, if I had to balance it, I've already famously said how I would balance Cammy. The only change I would make was I would make it so that the heavy drill is harder to hit in the front, so it has more invulnerability, so it can trade with fireballs by hitting legs a little bit or just outright beat Honda hands. But then I would also make the heavy drill have way more recovery So if you throw it out and you're wrong, you die.
Yeah.
But outside of that,
it'd be like Boxer Low Rush minus the recovery part. Minus the recovery part. Because Boxer Low Rush is always safe.
Boxer Low Rush is plus on block, dude.
Yeah.
What are you doing? Anyways.
Oh man. All right. Yeah, you actually ended up getting more questions, I think, than any guests. Obviously. Oh no. Here's a fun one. So Nerd Josh asked, "Who was the cheap Sabretooth player that made you write that salty bio in the X-Men vs Street Fighter FAQ?"
Oh man, there was a couple of them actually. And what's funny is the main one that did it, I think, is someone who just recently found me again on Facebook and added me, and I definitely added him back. So I accepted. So I should tell him. But no, there was just a lot of it. Like every arcade that you would go to, and even at UCLA, there would be these Sabretooth players that, you know, they would just do jump roundhouse times N. And like they would beat people, and you could tell they just were so like happy with themselves. Like, I'm clearly the best at this game. And I'm like, no, your character is the scrubbiest piece of garbage in any fighting game ever created. You know, like literally launch into air throw into super, which does like 220% damage off of a meter, is like, you are not good at this game, you know? And so like, oh man, that character got me so salty.
So funny. There's a little bit of lore there.
Oh man.
I got John Choi to speak up.
Oh,
so
no.
He asked, yeah, you might be a little worried. He said, "What happened at my birthday party when you actually became the star? And then there's something about your shirt." What's he talking about? He said you would remember.
You know what? I do not recall anything that happened at that night.
No.
There is only thing that I remember was that halfway through the party, or just like people hanging out, Bronson Tran, who was also there, was like, "Who wants to bet me that halfway through the night James's shirt comes off?" And Bronson Tran did win the bet, but that's all I'll say. That's the end of It's the end of this discussion. Tell John Choi I hate him, and no, I was kidding.
I'm gonna have John Choi fill in the missing pieces of that story.
Oh God, no. Okay, all right.
All right. Then I got a question from Hakudo.
Oh, nice.
It's not much of a question. It's insert obligatory Mexican community question. And then also to say your catchphrase. He said to say it for him.
To say, oh, what is it gonna kill? or
no,
the other one?
The other one. He wanted you to say it for him. He said, I was like, I don't know if I could ask him to say that. He's like, no, ask him to do it for me. So,
all right, you can tell Hokuto to suck my nuts, asshole. Also, just in case he didn't see it, but we always do the Ultra Chen TV Awards where we like award people stuff like that. I did put Hokuto as my number 3 player of the year, just for winning that Matcherino Cup and what it meant, and representing Mexico and stuff like that. Because I thought that was a really significant win and a big important one for Mexico as well. So you can let him know I said that, as well as telling him to suck my nuts, asshole. So there you go.
Yeah, you get both of them. Here's a prize. Just suck my nuts, asshole.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, that pretty much wraps up community questions. One question I always ask at the end is, who would you like to see on the show?
Like I said, I mean, if you could get Tomo, I think that would be awesome. But I mean, like, for all these people, you probably, like John Choi, obviously, Watson, Bob Painter, you probably have a goal. But I think maybe even bringing on Gerald Abraham, aka L.A. Akira, would be interesting to have him talk about that time, and have him talk about, him going to Japan and playing in that Champion Edition tournament. I mean, his name is not as well known in the Street Fighter II world, but he has a lot of that experience. He's hung out and he could speak Japanese, so he had like photos of himself hanging out with like the best Zangief of Champion Edition time and stuff like that. So he has a lot of cool stories, so he might be someone who would be really awesome to bring onto the show.
Yeah, man, that's what it's about. It's about, like, just getting all the lore on everybody, and
about the scene and how connected we all are.
There's a lot of obvious people to bring on, and I think he's one of the less obvious ones, so that's why I'll suggest him. So
yeah, I would definitely want to get connected.
Yeah, let me know.
This is awesome, man.
I can hook you up. I can hook you up with Gerald anytime. Just let me know. All
right. Yeah, sounds good. Damn. Wow, that was like 4 hours and some change. Definitely the longest one. Where can people find you, man?
I'm Jay Chenzor pretty much everywhere, on Twitter, on Twitch as well. I have an Instagram, but that's all cats. So if you just want to see pictures of my cats all the time, you can do Instagram.com/JChenzor as well. So pretty much anything social, you could probably find me at Jay Chenzor. It's the easiest way.
All right. And any shout outs you want to give?
Also, I mean, if you guys want to follow Ultra Chen TV on a bunch of stuff, we do the Tuesday show on Tuesday. I know there's Super Turbo tournaments going on at the same time, but you know, if you want to watch and hear about some news about fighting game community and stuff like that. But outside of that, I mean, honestly, shout outs to the SD community. Seriously, shout outs to the line of people, including Bob Painter, Papasi, Muffin Man, Eugene, Tanya, Atari, everybody, you know, yourself, Damn Die, and you know, for doing the shows from everybody who's been able to keep Super Turbo alive during these past few years. I always say no fighting game can truly ever die, and you know, outside of Melee being the obvious example, Super Turbo is always the main one. So shout outs to everybody who has been able to keep Super Turbo alive and well, and may it continue to live on for another 20 years.
Yeah, man. I always worry, like, dang, what if, you know, I go to Japan and some of the players decide, like, I have to retire, like, I can't press the buttons as quickly anymore, and it's like, I don't want to miss that chance. Of course, there's still a lot of younger players who are getting at that level, but you know, you don't want to miss the chance to be able to play like more legends. So
to be able
I don't think the game is going anywhere. I think you know, the game will forever be alive because of the depth. Like people just see how much fun it is. You know, just getting into it for the first time, and you know, you get hooked. You get hooked on these things. Yeah,
to be able to say that I told the story about, you know, playing Kotaka Shoten, it's like a half name drop flex as well, you know, because he's so good. So yeah, for sure, it'd be awesome to keep playing these guys forever.
I can tell you my flex with Kotaka. We played like one night, maybe almost 100 games, and then at the end of the set, he goes to me and he said, "You were the best at Vega versus Gal." Vega being Dictator.
Right, of course.
He's like, you know, I told the story a few times, so I always get so excited, but he's like,
cool.
"You're the best at it," because we basically went even. So my first time I had a long set with him, he won maybe 75 to 25. And I was like, no, I shouldn't be losing this. It's like, this is a match that I practiced the most. It should at least be going even. And then like 2 years later when I played him, I went to that point. So then Makiri Makiri, he was at the arcade. He's an American guy who lives in Japan, top Ken player. He learned ST all there. He was actually the first episode of Super Lore Boys.
Oh, nice.
And you know, so I asked him like, hey, like, come here, can you just translate this? And like, is he trolling me? He goes, no, like he's being real with you, like he's saying that. And I said, no, like, you Vega's better. Murasaki goes, no, like, you know everything I'm gonna do. You have the counter for everything. And I was just like, oh shit,
hey, let's go.
Yeah, that's a major flex. Y'all heard it here, but
no, I mean, but the thing is, this game will never die because, like I said, the game is a heart game, and if you're a heart player, as soon as you play it, you feel it right away. A friend of mine, Corey Bell, who's a very young player who's really interested in FGC history, has recently started playing Super Turbo, and he's playing Ryu. He's like, oh my god, why is this game so fun? And there's no surprise to me about that because he's another hard player. And so, you know, you pick up the game gives you everything that you need to just, like I said, that feeling of you feel like a god. And this game does that because the decisions you make are made not based off of frame data, not based off of anything. It's just because you felt like doing it, like Daigo's crazy meaty uppercut or whatever. And when you're right, it's just because you just knew. And that feeling, Super Turbo is probably one of the best games at bringing that out. And so there's a reason we keep playing it. I don't think it's ever going to go anywhere, to be honest. I really don't.
All right, well, I guess that's going to conclude today's episode of Super Lore Boys. Again, probably broke it up into 2 parts. I think you're definitely fine with sitting for hours. I'm fine for hours. I can do this all day.
Yeah.
But you know, I'd love to have you on again, James. I really appreciate the time that you took and, you know, to thoroughly answer the questions. I think this is a great start for the season. Yeah, so you guys can tune in to the end to find out who'll be on the next episode. Until then, I'll catch you guys later. Take it easy and peace out.